Okay, good evening, everyone. This is Sachin Karnik here. Today is the 1st of May, 2025. We are continuing our study and exploration of the various religious traditions of the world. And in that path, we have been examining various qualities that are attributed to God. Please do keep in mind that when we are using the word God here in this series, we're talking about the Jewish and the Christian tradition primarily. Right? So it's a monotheistic, transcendent God, one being that exists beyond everything and is the cause of everything, is the one who has created everything. Right? So there's many qualities that being potentially has. And to continue from last time, we're examining the quality of what is called Omni-Temporality. As a quick review, Omni-Temporality means present in every moment of time, for every being, in every situation. So I want to take this concept a bit further today. There's some writing you can see on the screen here, and you can follow that along as we are going through it, and I'll give some commentary on this as we move ahead. So the first point here is that the conceptual architecture of divine hiddenness. At the heart of Jewish mystical theology lies the notion of a hidden, limitless divine reality, a conception that resists definition and exceeds all finite prediction. This idea is not merely metaphysical, but experiential, theological, symbolic, pointing to the ultimate ground of being that precedes all manifestation. In classical Kabbalistic language, this reality is named En Sof, literally means without end, denoting the unbounded essence of God that is entirely transcendent, formless, and unknowable. The Zohar describes En Sof as the secret of secrets, a depth so absolute that even the highest divine names and attributes fail to reach it. The hiddenness of this reality does not signify absence, but superpresence or suprapresence. So this is an important point here. The hiddenness of this reality does not signify absence, but suprapresence. It is twofold, too overwhelming, too saturated with undifferentiated being to be contained within the narrow vessels of thought, language, or time. So this notion of suprapresence, I want to see if I can explain this a bit here. That God is present everywhere, in everything, in every situation. But superpresence means that the presence is there in time, transcendent to time, but supra meaning a different dimension of reality. We are sitting right now, let's say, in a particular room. I'm sitting in a room right now with a computer. I have my environment around me. There is the material reality that is in my experience. The body, the experiences of the body are all in my experience. Now, superpresence indicates that within the current experience of reality, there is another reality within it. And that hidden reality is the divine, is the immanent aspect of God. That God is immanent inside the creation. Now, one might ask, why is that the case? Well, many answers. One is that creation cannot exist without the presence of the substratum, without the presence of the divine being. So without the presence of that divinity, there is no existence of any kind. That is what is meant by suprapresence, that the suprapresence has an ontological quality. That the hiddenness of the reality is so overwhelming, so profound, so deeply undifferentiated, that our thinking, our language, the framework of time is too narrow to try to touch that. So let's go a bit further in this. So at the core of the Jewish mystical theology, particularly the Kabbalah, lies the recognition that the ultimate nature of the divine is hidden, not due to absence or remoteness, but due to an overwhelming plenitude of being. How beautiful that is. That God's presence is so plentiful, is present in extraordinary amounts, if you want to put it that way. It's not really an amount, but it's the plenitude of being. Yes, it is hidden in one sense, and that's what the spiritual path is all about. The spiritual journey in life is to touch that dimension that is hidden. So this divine reality defies all conceptual grasp. Our concept, our mind, cannot touch this, and resists ontological categorization. It cannot be categorized the way we categorize material phenomena. You see, so this notion echoes apophatic traditions in both Jewish and non-Jewish mysticism. That you cannot directly touch what is God. He has to reveal himself to you. The hiddenness does not suggest God's inaccessibility in a spatial or empirical sense, but rather God's transcendence beyond all categories, form, finitude, cognition, and even being as we typically define it. God is transcendent to all categories. Now, these qualities are of great relevance to anyone who is trying to connect with God through the scriptures, through faith, through devotion, that to bring inside the dimension of faith that God is this way. That's what the mystics are describing. They describe it as an access point. Okay, so God is not merely a metaphysical claim about the nature of being, but also experiential. That's what I was just saying. It can be experienced in real communion, real connection, when the height of devotion reaches that point. So it's not just a hypothetical, philosophical, metaphysical idea that, there is some reality that is super present and things like that. No. It is an experiential dimension that can be touched. It is theological. Because over the thousands of years that both traditions have developed, Judaism and Christianity, the theology has developed also. That theology is much more, it's a contemplative way to unravel the truths that were revealed. And again, remember my disclaimer, just present this as objectively as possible for the purpose of our studies here. And then there's, of course, the symbolic dimension expressed through sacred language and imagery. Right? So, to actually touch this extraordinary truth, this extraordinary plenitude of being, one would have to go to the writings of those who have touched that being, who have been in communion with that reality. And then from their experiences, they have written words and languages, and they have written paragraphs, they have written material to guide the rest of humanity back into that divine reality that is hidden but can be still accessed. Okay, so let's look at this further. The term without end, Ein Sof, is the key metaphysical symbolic name for this absolute divine essence in the Kabbalistic thought. And divine essence means that something exists. It's not just nothing. There is something. Okay, so we'll get to that in a moment. So Ein Sof, meaning without end, to God as utterly infinite, without boundary or limitation, but beyond all that is finite, beyond all that is dualistic or manifest, beyond every kind of boundary and limitation. So it is God before creation, God without attributes, because attributes are within everything in creation has attributes. And God even beyond the idea of God as commonly imagined. So all of this sounds very similar to the Vedanta concepts. You will see a lot of similarity between these Kabbalistic ideas and the non-dualistic ideas of Advaita Vedanta. So in this sense, Ein Sof is not a thing or being, but a groundless ground, an infinite plenitude that is so full it cannot be named, grasped, or divided. It is to come upon this infinite plenitude through devotion, through wisdom, through mantras in the Eastern tradition, through prayers in both East and West traditions. Right? So it is a groundless ground. Groundless ground means a fundamental grounded reality that does not have any other support. It is the ultimate reality in itself, that there is nothing as such beyond it as such. It is the ultimate one truth. So, and without end sounds very similar to the word Brahman, which also means vast. So you see a lot of similarity here. Okay, now, it is not being in a higher sense than being akin to Plotinus' one or Nagarjuna's Shunyata, yet remains distinctly theistic personality in Jewish thought. So Plotinus and Nagarjuna both looked at this in a little different way. That like non-being, that there's just nothing there. That's not the case. There's a theistic personality, that God actually has personality like we do, but that's divine. It's not just a nothingness. Shunya here, Nagarjuna talks about this word Shunya. It's a Buddhist term, and he's a Buddhist philosopher, mystic. In Buddhism, they talk about Shunyam. Shunya means nothingness. That's not what it is. So it is not being in a higher sense than being. Akin to the Plotinus one, like some kind of one being is there, and it is somehow always higher than our existence. Yes, it is even in the theological sense, but it's a little bit of a different distinction that I won't go into that right now. We'll leave that alone for the time being. Okay, now, secret of secrets, another way to think about this. The Zohar, the foundational text of Kabbalah, deepens this mystery by referring to the Ein Sof, meaning secret of secrets. That the great reality is the secret of all secrets. Absolutely amazing. So this evocative phrase suggests that the Ein Sof is not only hidden but doubly concealed, even from the highest levels of divine emanation. This layered concealment implies not even the most exalted spiritual beings or concepts, that can actually touch this reality. So one could be a very evolved person. It doesn't mean that one can actually touch that extraordinary level of reality. It is so profoundly hidden. This term, secret of secrets, symbolizes saturated unknowability. It's a heck of a concept, that you cannot know it. So then why are we talking about it if we cannot know it? We cannot know it in our normal frame of mind. But from point of view of grace, when prayer intensifies, when the readiness is there, the reality reveals itself. The ground of all grounds reveals itself. Otherwise, the secret of secrets, the concept symbolizes a saturated unknowability, a hyper-abundant reality in which all distinctions dissolve. It's like a person goes near the sun, is 500 miles away from the sun, and gets closer and closer. Eventually the only thing you see is sunlight. You don't see anything other than that. Doesn't mean other things don't exist, they do. But the experience of the individual who is going near the sun, further and further every moment, is in a hyper-abundant reality of intense sunlight. So God is like that. God is like this as an analogy. Once you go closer and closer to the divine, that's all you see. It's a hyper-abundant reality. That which is knowable becomes available to us. And all distinctions dissolve. Like when you're in that effulgent sunlight, there's no distinction of any kind. And if you go closer and closer to it, there's no you even. You also become the sunlight. If you go into the sun, the temperature is so much. Where are you and where's the sun? Whatever material body we have, that will be absorbed inside the sun. So this is where non-dualism comes into the picture. That as we go closer and closer to the infinite consciousness, infinite reality, through Jesus, through the Jewish tradition, through the Eastern traditions, in any which way we go through it, we get to the point where we, as our individual limited being, may not exist, or even if it exists in some divine way. Right? It's a very interesting point. So this secret of secrets concepts means that it's a hidden truth. In the Gita also there's a chapter, I think it's 14, chapter 14. The secret of secrets. The same expression is used there. Secret knowledge. Secret meaning it's not readily available to human being unless one takes a genuine, bona fide religious and spiritual path to try to awaken into this reality. So the secret of secrets points to the fact that what is most fundamentally real is also most concealed. Not through negation, but through excessive intensity. It's a heck of a sentence. Look at this sentence carefully. Very, extremely powerful. Every sentence in this document is like this because I've done the research to deliberately put it at this level. So try to do the research in this way. So let's look at the sentence very carefully. That the secret of secrets points to the fact that what is most fundamentally real is also most concealed. You see, does that make sense? Think about, for example, theoretical physics. The search for antimatter. I was just watching a documentary just before our workshop today on antimatter. And there was one individual, one American physicist, who actually discovered one particle of antimatter and was able to see its, was able to map it using a detector. And it was an anti-electron. Electrons spin in a negative way. He discovered one electron that spun in a positive direction. So they actually have evidence for something that is antimatter. Right? That's the first real evidence for antimatter. Again, so theoretical physics is an attempt to get to this fundamental reality. What is the fundamental reality that we exist? Keep breaking these particles down. How many particles are there? How many subatomic particles are there? And can they be broken down further? But these mystical traditions like the Kabbalah are so amazing that they are talking about individuals who have gone into mystical union and communion with the Most High, with the Supreme Reality, the Supreme Being. And in that extraordinary inner journey, because that's where it is, it's an internal journey, the secret of secrets becomes revealed. The kingdom of heaven is within you. Knock and the door shall be opened. The consciousness that you are is hidden and covered up very beautifully, by the cover of Maya, as per the Upanishads say. It's the same concept, in my interpretation at least. So this points to the secret of secrets, points to the fact that what is most fundamentally real is also most concealed. Fundamentally real is God. The reality is that supreme, that supreme essence that is called tattva in the Eastern traditions. Tattva in Sanskrit. It's very interesting. So this is not just a philosophical idea. It is experienced in divine communion, in divine union. So it's possible to look at the 73 books of the Bible, the Catholic Bible, or the Protestant Bible, which has 66 books, or the Jewish Hebrew Bible, or even Eastern Orthodox Christian tradition. And if you go deeper into any one of them, further and further and further, it goes to this point that there is touching by grace, by divine grace, that fundamental reality, that fundamental truth, fundamental being, the essential being, the essence, the Ein Sof, the secret of secrets, the extraordinary wisdom that dawns in the mind, is no longer concealed. You see, but the concept by itself points to the fact that what is most fundamentally real is also most concealed. Not through negation, but through excessive intensity. What does that mean? What is excessive intensity? It is so powerful, so intense, that we cannot see it. That's why it is not known to us, because of its excessive intensity. It's the most extraordinary idea. It requires a lot of contemplation and prayer to even grasp what this sentence means, even to intellectually grasp it. Now we can go further in this. Okay, because I do want to cover some of these points just for the purpose of our recording here. Hiddenness as suprapresence, not absence. So another concept here is suprapresence. A critical mystical reversal in Kabbalah is that hiddenness is not lack or void, but fullness beyond form, a concept known as suprapresence. Suprapresence refers to a reality that is so present, so ontologically rich, that it escapes articulation, much like that intense light that blinds the eye. It cannot be reduced to being here or there, this or that. How fantastic. This kind of language is all in the Upanishads also. But this is beautifully stated, through the research that I've done here on these concepts. And this is just on omnitemporality. I want to make a book out of this in the future. Just on omnitemporality. How amazing is this? That suprapresence refers to a reality that is so present, so ontologically rich, that it is so intense. Like, for example, if you take a water bottle, take a glass of water, take any object, that God is present fully right there. That would be suprapresence. So suprapresence refers to a reality that is so present. That's why we talk about the present moment, the beauty of diving into the present moment. It is so ontologically rich, meaning its existence is so powerful everywhere that we cannot detect it because of its richness and it escapes articulation. How can you describe? What description is ever enough? No description is adequate. Hence, that divinity that is super present cannot be reduced to being here or there. You cannot say God is here and not there. Then we have to say God is everywhere. So this concept resists the modern misunderstanding of divine hiddenness as God's absence or indifference. It is not that God is absent or God is indifferent, as many people might think. They might think, well, if God is hidden, there's a concept of divine hiddenness. That means God is absent or indifferent. No, rather, God is hidden precisely because God is too present, too intense to appear as an object among other objects. Absolutely amazing. In my humble commentary on this, I just find these sentences just absolutely so fantastic. Each one is just directly touching into an extraordinary state of realization. When each sentence is meditated upon, reflected upon, if someone is following a Jewish tradition or Christian tradition, Islamic tradition, or the devotional or mystical tradition, any tradition, these sentences can be very, very much like a beacon that will awaken us further. I mean, this notion that God is hidden precisely because God is too present, too intense to appear as an object among other objects. Amazing. Okay, 2 more minutes and I'll stop here in just a second here. Then we'll open it up for conversation. Language and thought, which operate by differentiation and exclusion, are insufficient vessels for the undifferentiated fullness of the divine. Amazing. Language and thought, which we are using even right now, even as Sachin is speaking, just right now. But they operate by differentiation and exclusion. Obviously, you have to differentiate one experience from another, exclude one category with another. That's how all of material reality is understood and experienced, through differentiation and exclusion. And language and thought operate within the dimension of differentiation and exclusion. They operate by differentiation and exclusion, and hence they are insufficient vessels for the undifferentiated fullness of the divine. Amazing. That would mean language and thought can never touch that. But what it does mean, language and thought can be utilized for prayer, for meditation, for asking for revelation. Then by grace, by divine grace, the revelation happens. Otherwise, language and thought are always going to be restricted and limited. Okay, so I'll hold my commentary here. There's a lot of other ideas here. I mean, they just go on and on. I have some 87 pages researched on this so far, and there'll be many. It'll turn into several hundred, I'm quite sure. Every single idea is worthy of contemplation. I don't want to overload too much. We covered just very quick review. What are some of the concepts? That there's divine hiddenness, that the God is unbounded essence, yet entirely transcendent. The Zohar is a Kabbalistic text that talks about the secret of secrets. God is, utterly infinite, beyond creation, beyond all that can be imagined. God is also called as the En Sof, the groundless ground, infinite plenitude. These ideas, and the extraordinary secret of secrets that becomes revealed to an individual. Not because of concealment in that sense, but because of excessive intensity. What an amazing idea. So with that, let's stop here for now, and then we'll open it up now for Q&A. As promised, I'll keep this to a half an hour.